We often think of the role of a teacher as preparing students for the future. And one of the problems that we have is that we don't know what the future holds. That's always been true to a certain extent, but it's especially true right now. We just don't know what AI is going to look like in any area of our lives in 5 years or even 1 year from now. And also, what is it that students need from teachers in this world where knowledge is, in some cases, completely flipped on its head? My name is Roxana Eldon. I run the Maintain and Stay Sane program for teachers, which helps teachers make the job and their lives more manageable. This is a video about what approach you can take to teaching in this era of uncertainty, but also why you can go into school tomorrow feeling like you still really have some things to offer your students. And it is okay to be honest that there might be skills that they're learning in school right now that they will not need in the future. When I was a kid, one of the things that we learned was library skills. We would go to a card catalog in the library in our school. It was arranged by the Dewey Decimal System, and we would use that to find books. And they also had a machine called a microfiche machine, where you could find a newspaper from 1922 or something and look at a picture of it under a magnifying glass so you could read this old newspaper off of a roll of film. This was a thing that they absolutely thought we needed to be able to access information in an advanced way. And I would argue that unless you have a very specialized career, this is completely irrelevant at this point. But at the same time, was that a waste of our time? I don't know. Maybe it planted in my head like humans need a way to put information in a place that we can get it in the future, and we then need to have a way to figure out how to get it. Whether that's hieroglyphics or Google or AI or the Dewey Decimal System and microfiche machine in my elementary school library, humans still have that issue. Our brains still only have a certain amount that they can hold, and we still need to figure out how to use that limited space in our brains. And if you're a teacher, you need to figure out how to use that limited space in your students' brains. If we back up a little bit, what we want for students is very much the same as what we have always wanted for students. Yes, we want to prepare students for the future to the best of our ability, but that is not all teachers do. Teachers also serve two very important functions that have a lot less to do with predicting the future. One of those is that they need to connect students to timeless skills that students have needed throughout recent history. What are some of the things that we would have wanted students to know 50 to 100 years ago that we still want them to know today? The world was different, technology was different. What are some of the skills that students needed even back then that your students still need right now? And a few of those might be things like how to control your attention, how to concentrate, how to persevere through a meaningful challenge and get to the other side of it, how to teach themselves things given whatever tools they have at the time, some basic structural things that will help train their judgment on what is good and bad information. They need to know enough not to get cheated. And then there are some basic life skills about how to get along with people, how to understand other people, how to have a basic theory of mind of the person you're talking to or the person that you're writing a persuasive essay for. You can find a more detailed list on my website, which will be in the related post linked in the description below this video. The other very important role that teachers play, even in uncertain times, and maybe especially in uncertain times, is that teachers are role models of how to adapt to change as it's happening. On the one hand, this can be where the generation gap hits you as a teacher. This is where you wonder if students need to learn to use PowerPoint in your classroom. Then you wonder if you should have switched to Google Slides already. And then you're like, no, I should be using Canva. And the tools are constantly evolving. And even what I'm saying right now might sound old-fashioned by the time you listen to this. The nature of the teaching job is always changing. And when technology changes faster and society changes faster, the job of teaching also changes faster. At the same time, it is hard to predict what is hype and what's a real step forward. Not every new idea lives up to its promise, and no one knows that better than teachers. Who among us has not sat through the professional development about the new education technology that's going to create miracles for our students? Sometimes there are great new programs, and sometimes you front load a ton of time and energy into something that glitches the first time you use it in front of your students, or it causes more trouble than it's worth, or you end up spending more time helping students troubleshoot this technology that's supposed to make your life easier. This is part of the real-time evolution of teaching. And this is where you're also a role model because you are someone in the middle of your career adapting to very fast technological change in front of your students. One day they will be mid-career adults adapting to their own technological changes. So they're seeing you. Are you someone who's going to spend a lot of energy complaining? Are you someone who's going to be a cheerleader for something that doesn't work? Or are you giving them some emotional realism as you try to strike that balance? Trying to strike that balance of staying current while also not leaping over the hype cliff is a mindset that makes you a role model for your students. And I say this as someone who's worked with teachers for 20 years and has seen a lot of hyped up ideas come and go, but sometimes they leave us with something good, even if they don't quite live up to the hype. During moments when I really do need to cheer myself up about how things are going today, I remind myself there have always been obstacles to education, and some of them were much bigger than whatever we're facing now. We are only 100 years out from the discovery of penicillin, which is the first antibiotic. Penicillin was discovered in 1928, and before that, 25 to 30% of kids did not even make it to the average age of high school graduation. It was also less than 100 years ago that eyeglasses started to become affordable enough for the average American to have them, and that they started doing vision screening in schools. It was also during the 1920s that textbooks started to be mass printed. In the 1930s, public library access expanded significantly. It wasn't until the 60s and 70s that the average school started to have a photocopier. And the 1970s is also when pocket calculators started to come to schools, which of course allowed new types of cheating, but also allowed schools to teach a whole different type of math. And back in the 80s and 90s, when I was growing up, most of these problems had been solved, but to get that list of facts that I just shared with you, I probably would have had to spend a whole afternoon in the library looking up books, using the Dewey Decimal System, and maybe even trying to figure out that microfiche machine. So yes, there are plenty of educational challenges right now and plenty of unknowns, but there's reason enough to be optimistic that you will help your students figure out how to navigate whatever comes next. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.